Hi everybody, this is Matthew Pose with Audioholics, and we're going to be talking with Peter Aylett about a whole lot of things actually. So he's here representing a company that he's a partner in, Officina Acoustica. We have Trinnov in the room, MadVR, we have Ascendo speakers. What else do we have?
Seymour Screen Excellence.
Seymour Screen, I should know that, I'm wearing their tag.
Providing the contents, Chords providing the cables, RTI providing a little bit of control.
And this room, I heard that you guys had disassembled and reassembled this room now 12 times, is that right?
We have. We build all Trinnov showrooms, and every year Trinnov, and every show, Trinnov have a different loudspeaker partner. So every time the room gets built, it gets pre-built at our factory in Italy. We test it, we calibrate it, we pack it up, we then bring it to the show floor and build it up exactly as it was in the factory. It's kind of a train hard, fight easy approach. But this room has now been up, down, up, down, up, down 12 times.
Yeah. It's impressive. So I did a demo during the press event. It was a very impressive demo. We got to hear Trinnov Waveforming. We got to see the Barco projector in its fullest glory. We got to see your beautiful room. And I think it's important to note that you guys were offering, in a sense, a turnkey room. So it's maybe not all the equipment, but it's the acoustics, it's the interior design, it's everything in a package that gets shipped off and reassembled in the room on site, probably in like a fifth the time of what it would normally take to do something that nice.
Yeah, you've done my job absolutely perfect for me, Matthew, explaining what we do. We call what we do acoustic interior design. And it's interesting because we rarely have acoustics conversations with people. People say, you're going to sort the acoustics out, aren't you? We go, yeah, no problem, don't worry, we'll handle that. And then we have very, very deep design conversations. And the way we build rooms, I don't think anyone else does it like us. And if you consider how car manufacturers work, you have a car manufacturer with maybe 12 different models, they probably only have 2 different platforms, and they just put different bodies on. We have our platform, the way we build rooms. There's aluminium substructure, and then onto that we put our machined MDF panels that are fabric wrapped, leather wrapped, whatever glorious finish you want. And we play around with holes in those panels, we play around with pitch, we play around with size, we play around with shape. We play around with the thickness of the panel. We play around with the thickness of the absorber on the back, which is our own material called eco fiber. We have that in 3 different thicknesses, and each of those thicknesses in 2 different flow resistivities. And when it comes to acoustics, if you think that a drive unit in a cabinet is a speaker, if you take that speaker and put it in a room, the room is the speaker's cabinet. So every room we do is completely different, it looks completely different, and then we'll always consider how does that loudspeaker perform? What is, that loudspeaker characteristic? Where is the seating positions? Just take everything into account to then design the acoustics.
And that's actually a really good lead-in to something else I wanted to talk about. So, we should definitely have you on the show again to talk about Officina Acoustica and what you guys do. I've seen data on the rooms. I mean, one of the things that, again, is going to go into what I want to bring up is that your rooms measure really well. You sent me data when we were talking about that. And one of the things that when I'm designing a room and I'm thinking about using somebody else's acoustic design, I have to think about, is it going to meet my expectations and standards, which are very high. But they're not really that high. They are the standards that should be expected in the industry. And so you sent me data on your rooms, and what I saw was RT 60 times, which were spot on. And they were consistent across multiple positions. Yeah. And that's not something that's true in every room. And a lot of the systems that are like yours from other manufacturers are not really that much like yours. They're very superficial. The acoustics are very thin, they're one size fits all, and in many cases what you're getting is just a dead room from like 1 kilohertz on up, and there's not a lot going on below that, which is really not ideal. So you guys have done it right, which goes into RP22, which is a standard that was released here at CEDIA while we were all here. You led that group, right?
Yep, I chaired the working group. And just to clarify one thing, it's a recommended practice, not a standard. Subtle but important.
Can we make it a standard?
Probably not. I think standards tend to be for things where there are life systems involved. And we also don't want to constrain the industry too much. If it's a standard says you must. A recommended practice says you should. So we are making a very, very, very bold statement with this already, and it's guidance. But I think to make it a standard, you have to go through additional peer review. All of this is done anyway to ANSI standards, American National Standards Institute. So the process went through a full, rigorous, standards-based process, but it's still going to be a recommended practice.
Yeah. I mean, I had an opportunity to review earlier drafts of this and provide even some of my own comments, so I know that there was a lot of peer review in a sense. I mean, not only did you have some of the top industries thinkers as part of developing these standards in the first place, but there was then additional layers of comment review that took place to get it to where it's at today. Now, one of the things that's really interesting about this, besides being a comprehensive set of recommendations to get an optimum home theater experience, is that you've now established levels. So it's not like the recommended standard, I shouldn't say standard, the recommendation is it needs to be as good as it gets, and here's what that is. It's actually that there are layers to, and I think you referred to layer 1 as the minimum to achieve the artistic intent. Did I get that right?
Yeah, the minimum to convey artistic intent. So the content producers put a huge amount of time and effort into creating their content. And we thought really, really long and hard about this. And we think that level 1, both at audio and video, and we'll talk a little bit about that difference in a second, is the minimum required so that when you watch the movie, when you watch the content, you think, yep, I get what the director was intending. I get what the content producers were intending.
Yeah, I think that's really great. Now, the other thing I noticed when reviewing those levels 1 through 4 was that this is not like level 1 is kind of like a low level. This is not like a basic, I'm not going to name brands, but sound bar with a TV. That's not necessarily going to meet, it could meet level 1 potentially, because I think you allowed for a 3.1.2 system as a minimum, is that right? You could have just 3 channels in the front, not side.
We have, I mean, there's nothing explicitly in there that says you can't use a soundbar. And when you say soundbar, there are soundbars that you buy from your big box store, and there are really magnificent custom soundbars.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what we say is that for the front 3 speakers, you should have picture to sound coherence. And if the soundbar gives you picture to sound coherence, then there's nothing to stop you using one.
Yeah. So you could have a system that is sort of basic, but it has to be a pretty darn good system with pretty high capabilities. And the room itself needs to be pretty decent to still achieve level 1. So level 1, I think, is an accomplishment if somebody designs a room that it's not basic at all. Level 4 is an astounding achievement, really.
Yeah,
I mean, we were saying we don't think this room, which was an amazing experience, was level 4, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not going to use conjecture. I'd have to do the calculations. I'd have to figure out what level the room is. But one important thing to remember about levels is that for every seating position in the room, you can predict the level. The level of the room is the highest level that the reference seating position achieves, and at least one adjacent seat. So we're not saying that to be a level 4 room, every single seat has to be a level 4, because that's just not tenable. And the way customers use rooms is most of the time, there may be 1, 2, 3 people in there. Occasionally they have their friends over for Super Bowl. There may be a countertop at the back of the room. You may be sitting people in seats much closer to room boundaries. And it's possible that reference seating position is level 4, but there's other seats in the room that might not even meet level 1. And that's fine.
Yep, that makes sense. We often refer to those as the mother-in-law chairs or the cheap seats, but they're the chairs where maybe we don't care as much about, but you got to have that overflow seating when you've got a large group of guests in. And, mother-in-laws should get a better seat sometimes.
I happen to really like my mother-in-law, but yeah, I get it.
So Gene says that about his mother-in-law all the time. I have no idea if he actually likes her or not, but he refers to the bad seats as the mother-in-law suite.
Sure.
So, even in my theater, the front, the main 3 rows, those 3 seats are the best. The middle one is the best of the best. The back row is not as good. The viewing angle is a little bit narrower than probably it should be in absolute terms. It's closer to the wall than it should be in absolute terms, but I had a small room and I wanted 6 seats instead of 3, and I think a lot of people are faced with that exact same issue. It's they want high performance, but they do want to be able to have their friends over and have a decent-sized group watch movies.
Every room is a balance of compromises. Every room is a balance of customer needs. I have done and am doing quite a lot of work in the Middle East, and culturally there, with rulers of countries, these people want to sit on the back row. It's just a cultural thing. They like to see everyone in front of them. So the back row becomes the reference seating position. Now that means in a multi-row theatre, the front row is way too close to the screen. It's not a fantastic experience, but that's just the way it is. Always a balance of compromises.
Yep, and that all makes a lot of sense. So, last thing I want to mention is that this has measurements that are going to be a part of helping to show, I guess, that you have achieved those. I mean, I think it kind of serves 2 purposes, if I understand. So one would be helping the integrators to know that they've met the standards they were trying, I shouldn't say standards, but recommended practice they were trying to get to, because sometimes things can be changed after the fact. It would maybe help you get towards that. Acoustics is a good example. when it's designed the way you do it, you don't really have to worry as much. You know it'll be good. But there are scenarios where you build a room, didn't quite achieve what you had hoped to. You could take the fabric down and put some more absorption up, or take some. I've had to take absorption down actually from time to time and change things up a little bit. So I think there's measurements that are going to go along with this. But that's kind of a next step, right? So there's a new committee that's going to be responsible for developing the measurement recommended practices to help show that these rooms are achieving at these levels.
Absolutely. This is a culmination of 5 years worth of work. And at some point, you just have to draw a scope line and say no more scope creep. And the reality is that if we included measurement and verification in this, it would have taken another 2 years. So what we decided to do is very, very firmly make this a design document. All of the numbers for all of the levels, and for each level there are 21 individual different technical criteria. And to meet a level for audio, you have to meet every single one of those criteria. You might meet 20 of them, but fail on the 21st. Sorry, you don't meet that level. So what we're doing is, this is a design document. Every single metric in here is predictable, so long as you have speaker data and amplifier data. And what we're now going to be doing is, this working group is going to transition onto a new recommended practice, imaginatively called RP32. This is RP22. The new one's going to be RP32, and that's going to be measurement and verification of audio systems.
Well, and I'm hoping I can be a part of that, because that's something I am more than passionate about. So I'm excited about that opportunity. So, all right, I want to thank you very much, Peter. This is great. Like I said, I'd like to have you on our channel again in the future to talk more about all of these things. I think what you're doing with Officina Acoustica is really great. I appreciate rooms that you just want to be in. Your rooms are rooms I just want to be in. I would love to own one. I appreciate your passion for quality and trying to push the recommended practices to a level of quality that I don't think exists across the board, even though there are some absolutely wonderful theaters going in and media rooms going in around the country, around the world. And I'm excited about opportunities to work with you in the future. I have a huge amount of respect, and so I really appreciate this. So thank you.
And to make it clear, this is a free download for everyone. Free download for everyone. All it needs is your name and your email address. And the only other thing that CEDIA requests is, once you've got the PDF, rather than sharing the PDF, share the link. That way CEDIA can keep a track of the amount of downloads. But yeah, read it, absorb it. If you have any questions, comments, then I'm happy for Matt to share my email address. Let me know.
Thank you very much, Peter. All right, and that is our interview with Peter. And I want to say, as we do in Audioholics, until next time, keep on listening.